Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day number 9 of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month series. And today's topic is ransomware. And it is a huge topic, and we're going to be covering it in various facets throughout the rest of this series. So it's not going to go away quite right after this episode. But today, I just want to cover real basically what ransomware is. You probably have heard about it 1,000 times. You probably get a pretty good understanding of what it does. But let's talk about what really happens. And really a quick background on ransomware and why it's kind of so terrifying, um, in alignment with the theme of our series. It's terrifying because it's kind of the thing. It was the catalyst by which kind of we have all this cyber crime going on in many ways. Because prior to ransomware, we really had only like viruses, and we had those crazy Nigerian print schemes and stuff like that, but it really didn't involve software, and certainly not malicious software. The only malicious software we had was just this destructive stuff called viruses, and those really weren't there for any financial gain. Maybe if you're doing it for industrial espionage purposes, that was really about the extent of it. It was just a hacker's sixth sense of humor and fun that kind of created a lot of that to happen, some underground competitiveness going on. So that was the kind of prior to then the ransomware happened, and it was horrible. It didn't really work most of the time, but it wasn't long until they actually perfected that craft in the form that it was in. And basically, it would attack your file system, meaning the files that are on your machine. Now, in the beginning, it was horrible. It would actually attack files that would kind of cause the system to shut down or have some type of issue before it actually got to the meat, to the user directory, and take all the pictures and the stuff that you would actually pay to get back. It was a while before they figured out, oh, we need to go after the user directories first. We don't need this other stuff. Then, oh, now we're going to build out a library of all the different like QuickBooks and Quicken and all that stuff and bring it. So it was a while before they started really perfecting this thing to maximize the amount of money that they could get. So keep that in mind. It did take a while, but back then we didn't have cryptocurrency. We didn't really have Bitcoin. So how did you pay the bad guys? You certainly didn't write them a check. No, you didn't. You used those crazy kind of weird cash cards. I mean, I really didn't understand the purpose of a lot of that until I kind of got involved with the IT aspect of using those green dot cards and such to transfer cash basically anonymously. I mean, they could be traced, but by the time it was traced, it was, the people probably already moved on to the next town, and that was that. So really we had this kind of really awkward payment system and stuff, and I think it kind of starved out a little bit there, but boy oh boy is it back with a passion now, and it has grown up tremendously since its very humble beginnings. Obviously the way we pay now is completely different. It is cryptocurrency. It is typically Bitcoin that you have to pay in, and it's not easy to get that, which is probably one of the downfalls, I think, in their scheme. And the government's made it kind of a little more difficult because they've put an insane amount of pressure on the banks, because the banks have to kind of account for all this money moving around. And if it moves into something where there's no tracing, well, that can be considered money laundering. So you could see where the federal government gets pretty concerned about banks that support anything like that. So little tip, never, ever, ever transfer anything from your bank to any type of service that's going to convert things to Bitcoin. Always going to be some type of cash transaction or something, or a third party gets involved to manage these transactions. So, that part in itself is pretty difficult. But the software itself, the malicious software part, has grown up to be a very intelligent and cunning piece of software. They're not looking to encrypt everything that you press on the link or you do something. If you attend our live hacking webinar, we're going to do that. We're going to show you exactly what happens getting that foothold in, meaning that it persists. What persistence means is that if you log off or even reboot the machine, that piece of software is still there. And what the kind of purpose behind it is to just act as a agent to collect data upon the environment in which it's installed, so that it can transmit that data to the bad guy central, where they can figure out what the amount is that they can extort from you for either ransomware or data exfiltration. So if you've got some really juicy bits on your server, they have no reserve in actually extorting you as well to not share that information. That might be, the left jab, right hook. That might be the right hook after the left jab to say, all right, you got your files back, and now if you don't pay us this amount of money, we're going to expose these files we got. So it's become a very complicated, kind of evil twisted, very focused on the money. It's all about the money at the end of the day. So it's grown up. It's grown up a lot. In terms of the technology used to encrypt these files and decrypt these files, surprisingly, it hasn't changed all that much. It's gotten a little bit more complicated, but it really hasn't changed at the end of the day all that terribly much. I mean, there are some schemes out there that are a little more destructive if you don't pay, but it really, at the end of the day, they have to kind of guarantee their service, or else people aren't going to pay. So really, that piece of it has stayed. It's gotten a little more complicated, but it really hasn't changed all that much since the beginning in terms of what it does and how it operates. Just the payment in the kind of pregame has changed significantly. So, we're a little bit over, but one of the things I want to drive home here is that when these guys do their risk assessment, you have to understand that small business is a huge target in this. And I always encounter the mindset of, we're small potatoes. We've got maybe a couple $1,000s in our account, and it doesn't matter to them. You've got a couple $1,000s in the account, and they'd much rather do 100 of those, 1,000 of those in a week, than to go after the big guys where they can only do a couple of those, because there's a massive amount of research that they have to do. There's all sorts of risk involved, especially as those things are reporting back. You've got a lot of wheels in motion that are going to take up some pretty high amount of brain cycles of the bad guys. But if they can just mindlessly push these out to small businesses and kind of set the trap and let it go, that's what makes you a target, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that in this series, we're going to put enough speed bumps out there where they're just going to move on past, that their bot is just going to move on past you and make sure that you're not, one of those victims. So that's the intent. And that's kind of why I wanted to tie that into this topic of ransomware, because I don't want you to think for a moment that small business is not a very viable target for them just because there's a lower dollar amount. They can definitely make up in volume in that scenario. So man, that's a downer to end on, but I hope that you understand a little bit more about ransomware. I hope that this has been educational. Please do attend our webinar series. You're going to learn a lot more of this in depth, and we're really going to lay out those speed bumps in a map for you to make it a little bit easier than trying to get it in bits and chunks and bytes in this series. Really lay out a map for you that you can kind of go down, as well as the self-assessment, kind of the litmus test. That is just going to show you how vulnerable you are very quickly. So please do sign up for that. I'm going to put that in the comments down below. And until next time, stay safe and have a great day. Bye-bye.